if I want the essence of what a Porsche really is and really was, what would it be? And I wanted to buy one at a reasonable price. It would be a 914 by all means. Porsche was, by design, a small car company specializing in a very, very unique car. If we look back today upon the past in Porsche, what are they coming back out with? They finally realized that the true essence of a Porsche was air-cooled engine behind the seats. So what do we see now in Porsches? We see the 911 and we see the Boxster. And if you look through them, you can actually see the 911 and the 914.
Porsche automobiles are manufactured by one of the most unique car companies in the world. The owners of these cars are also very unique and among the most loyal in the automotive enthusiast sector. We at AutoAtlanta consider it our mission to save and preserve these pieces of history, as well as the Porsche mark, through restoration, servicing, and providing the most comprehensive parts inventory at reasonable prices. After almost 30 years of sole dedication to the fabulous 914, our vision has broadened into helping to maintain and preserve all Porsches, from the 356A to the newest Porsche releases of the 986 Boxster, 996, and even the GT3 and Cayenne. We have single-handedly restored hundreds of Porsches, including many we personally owned, and have won numerous Concours Awards along the way. We can do the same for you, at any level, on any budget.
This we call our trophy case, where we keep the best of the best and the rarest of the rare. And we call it a trophy case because there really isn't an entrance to it, as you'll see. And here we are, climbing into the trophy case. Actually, it was not our intention to make such an inaccessible entrance, but with the design and our limited space and the need to get the maximum number of trophies in here, we were relegated to putting a hatch in it. So we call it our trophy case, not a showroom. This first car that we're showing is what they call, what the factory calls a GT. Now, they make GTs in two different ways, one for the street and one for the track. They made very few track GTs with the fiberglass on them and the 12 plug engine and all of the other GT features. And they made just a few more for the street, and they call them the M471 option package, which consisted of factory-installed steel flares, 6-inch Fuchs alloys with 21mm wheel spacers, and a front flared belly pan and flared rocker pedals. Other than that, it was a 6 in stock dress with a 6 stock 2-liter engine in it. This car is an odd one, and I was offered to buy this car. I really didn't know whether I wanted to buy it or not, because this is not a driver's car. And you say, George, not a driver's car, all 914s for the driver? Well, this car is a Sportomatic, and for those of you who don't know what a Sportomatic is, it means that you may shift the gears, but there's no clutch. So with that, this is a car for the older types that don't want to get the thrill of driving a sports car anymore. Very, very rare though. They only made 4 of them, and if you look at the rear script, you'll see where it says 914-6 Sportomatic. I drove this car after I bought it probably 20 miles. The thrill was instantly gone. No heel toe, no downshifting and upshifting. Every time you touch the shift knob, it electrically back then disengages the electric clutch, so you can't even rest your hand on the shift knob between shifts. Very, very funny car to drive. This car was repainted some time ago, and all the paint job is nice. It's not the best in the world yet. The gentleman who sold it to us had just completely redone the suspension with Bilstein struts and powder coated it, and totally rebuilt the engine. So the guts of this car are absolutely spectacular, along with the interior, which is fairly original and nice. But a car, because of its odd nature, that we would never want to drive, just show. The 914-6 Sportomatic. I'm scared of this car. This is a 1971 914 6-cylinder that is willow green, probably the most unsaleable color back in the fruit-flavored years of the early 70s, that only has 5,601 miles on it. And I drove this car 1 mile. This is probably the most original and perfect example of a 914-6 in existence. And I say that because besides it fresh off the factory assembly line and driven once around the United States, a gentleman, an American living in England, wanted something perfect to enter in the Benson and Hedges concourse, which is Britain's premier concourse event in the whole country. Well, this guy was a little bit anal, to say the least, and I am anal, but this guy was 3 times as anal. He took this perfect car and got up under it with a toothbrush and spent 2 years cleaning it and making it so flawlessly perfect that you could touch your tongue to the bottom of the heat exchanger and not worry about getting any dust on it. And consequently, he won the Benson Hedges concourse 4 times with this car. The best of the best, beating the Rolls Royces and their Jags and their other British cars for overall perfection and cleanliness. This car has been in so many articles in Britain and in the United States that I am afraid, just by it sitting here, that something could go wrong with it, or some tiny little pick could happen, or some of the dust could get on it and hurt its flawless beauty. You look at this car, in every crevice, it's perfect. This car is the so-called last 6. For years, the serial numbers published in all of the Porsche articles designated serial number 240 as the last 6-cylinder ever built. In 1972, they only built a very, very limited number of 6-cylinders because they had decided that they were going to build 2-liter 4-cylinders from then on, as the 6s weren't well received. So they built just a few in 72, and they never exported them. It was truly a 6 in every way. However, the 72s were unique because they had the dash vents, unlike the 70-71 models, the adjustable passenger seat, and actually a Volkswagen steering column. So this was truly a Volkswagen Porsche body that they made into a 6 at the factory. The fun thing about this car is that it came from the factory with a 911S 2.2 engine, which was rated at 190 horsepower. All of the 6s had 2 liters in it. This doesn't. This has a larger engine that is S-spec, which means that would make all the Porsche racing rules different, in that if you found a stock car equipped with an engine from the factory, you could race with that engine. Well, that's what this has in it. So 190 horsepower engine from stock. They did a lot of different things in 72. We have the Cardex, the so-called Cardex from Porsche, which is the certificate of authenticity that always designates the dealer or the importer. This said for factory use only. We know for a fact this stayed in Germany from stayed at the Porsche from 72 until 79, probably used as a model for whatever car they were thinking about making for research and development, and finally sold to a gentleman living in Munich in 1979, and he had it. We think that the factory put the flares in this car as well, because we look at the job they did and are just as flawless as the GTs. And then a buddy of his, German guy living in Massachusetts, bought it, and that's where we found out about it. but 72 914.6, never exported. Notice the original European one-piece dual bulb turn signals and no side markers, along with the factory H3 high-power driving lights. We're happy to have this car. The caveat about it is, and I'm going to walk over here, this is serial number 257. And here I just said that was the last 6. Well, later on, the numbers were revised from Porsche, and they found out that even though that was the so-called last 6 for factory use only, they cobbled the last 20 together from parts. And here is 6 number 257, way after the fact. However that car is known, the title of that car is the last 6, and here is serial number 257. This was the most dilapidated car one can imagine that we got from Germany. A friend of mine over there, I wanted a higher serial number. When I found out there were other serial numbers available, he sent me over this total piece of junk, but it was serial number 257, and it was so badly cobbled that we decided that we would make some neat retro concept car out of it, and that's what we did. We put steel flares on it, we put a 3-liter engine in it, we put 86 Carrera front end up underneath it. It was yellow originally. I like red. I color changed it to red. We have on our website a complete list of all the neat things we had done to this, thinking about what the factory would have done if they came up with a modern 914.6. The car is still in its Euro dress, of course, with a dual bulb turn signal and no side marker, the H3 driving lights, and you really need to look at this front bumper. This is a beautiful piece. Our welder Matt made a GT bumper in chrome. Now all the GT bumpers were fiberglass, but to put the oil cooler in here and have it work effectively, we had to get a relief in the bumper for the air to pass through to match the bottom spoiler. So he took an original chrome bumper that was a little bit damaged and cut it and sectioned the pieces back in, and then we had to re-chrome. This is a one and only bumper that is absolutely beautiful because we wanted this to be a very attractive looking car that, although is very, very fast on the street, is even faster on the track and performs magnificently. This car also, we put a 915 transmission in it because we wanted to deal with the horsepower. But even more than that, we wanted to see what the car would be with a 915. I personally like the 901 transmission. The original one in the 914 is a lot better because they shift a lot quicker. But we tried hard to get this to shift as perfectly as possible and to deal with the heavy horsepower coming out of this specially built 225 horsepower 3-liter. A spectacular car. I love to drive it. I hate to say that it got so beautiful that I hesitate to drive it that much these days because its heritage, its beauty, its showworthiness, I keep it here for one and all to see as an example of what can be made out of a 914.6. You know, everybody thinks that this is the highlight of our collection. This car, this silver car, but it's not. This has probably 55,000 miles on it. It's been repainted. It's had the gas tank taken out by Brumos in Jacksonville and repainted with a little bit of gloss on it. The engine has been out. The fuel injection system redone. It's fairly dirty up underneath considering it's put together in a crude way, really. The engine compartment is all blacked out. This double engine grill with the expanded metal and the rivets put in here sort of looks ugly. Where the side vinyl is, of course it's gone, but yet they retain the chrome strips on the bottom of it. And the interior looks overdone. It looks sort of downtown, in my opinion. But yet, this car, a 916, is one of 11 factory prototypes and the only prototype that is DOT legal and came to this country. And the giveaway, of course, is the one-piece steel roof. Actually, this was going to be the new Porsche supercar from 1972. More expensive than a 911S, and to set the trend for what Porsche wanted to be. Air-cooled engine behind the seats, but mid-engine, the best handling, the highest horsepower, the lightest, the widest, the lowest to the ground. It would have set the trend for Porsche to be something magnificent. But because the 914 was only accepted as a so-called VW Porsche, they figured, how are we going to sell a VW Porsche for more than our 911S? So they abandoned the project after making only 11 factory prototypes. One of the highlights about this are these 916 bumpers, and you can see how perfectly they fit, unlike any of the repros. Well, because of the crash standards that were first imposed in 1973, these were designed to actually be polyurethane with bumper shocks. But of course the prototype only had fiberglass. They never ever have put fiberglass on a street car. But the fact that Porsche was already thinking about this one-piece aerodynamic bumper will just let you know how forward-thinking they were. The neatest thing probably is the windshield with the antenna incorporated. The windshield is a little bit loose, so Mr. Hall told us, and I think that I can push on it, and he's probably right, but who is ever going to take this windshield out to reseal it for fear of breaking the one and only 914 windshield with an antenna in it? Not us. So it sits here, it's guarded, it's dehumidified, it'll be just fine. And this is the showroom where we keep some of our low-mile or no-mile 914s, plus our fabulous 904. And this is a fabulous 904. Or is it? Well, by looking at this car down to the nitty-gritty, nobody could ever tell that it wasn't an absolute factory example. But we know it's not. We bought this car as an inspiration and a model by which to do our 904 kit car, which is currently in its third phase. And this is not in any way, means, or form a kit car because it is built just like the original 904. The fiberglass body, which the original 904 had, bonded to the steel chassis. So this gentleman in England is making these from the original molds, reproducing every single original part, down to even the taillights, and coming up with a car that has a stronger chassis than the original, is dead on the money, where all the original parts were interchanged. And so much was this like the original that Porsche actually allowed somebody, or the Carrera Pan America allowed the person to enter an exact copy of this as a 904 in the race. So that attests to the fact that the guy does a beautiful reproduction. I flew over to England to look at the final details of this car before we imported it, because it was specially built for us, and marveled at the fact that this guy can create a car like this out of a tiny little old Spitfire airplane maintenance shed in the south of England. And I saw this car and what he had done, and the craftsmanship and the detail and the attention paid to every tiny little part to duplicate the factory was just astounding.
AutoAtlanta is a company deeply rooted in maintenance and restoration. Our certified technicians regularly perform every aspect of Porsche servicing in a fast and timely manner. From full-scale rust restoration to the most common of oil changes, our shop and technicians can handle the job.
And here we have our typical 914 rust repair. This particular car is a 76 model that, as you probably know, they only made 4,100 76s, and it was the last year of the 914, so it's worth restoring. We consider this car a minor candidate, so when I show you all the rust, don't get horrified, because this car, in our opinion, is easily fixable. It's not been damaged before, it's very straight. As I said, it is a 76, and everything is there. We're not going to go have to hunt and peck for bumpers or parts or chrome trim or anything like that. So then we move into the engine bay to show you the extent of the rust on this car. First, the longitudinal. This is the structure of the car. There's a box section right here that is made up of two pieces. The longitudinal, or frame member, and its boxed cap on the outside, which we call the inner rocker and inner wheelhouse piece. You really can't tell much about the rust until you actually cut away the floor pan, and then you can see where the longitudinal is rusted here. The seatbelt mount is here, and actually at this point between the firewall and the interior of the car is what we call the backbone. And when this area here is rusted, especially on both sides, and on the outside, the car then sags. This is the sag point of the 914, and this is where the door gap goes away and the window starts to stick. So it is imperative that this area is fixed first. As you can see, the holes in here, not so bad on the bottom on this car. We have not taken the outer rocker panel off, but it is rusted also. And then as we go back on the longitudinal, the so-called floor pan triangle area, jacking donut, and all of the rust that has accumulated over the years. So we have to address the longitudinal first and then add pieces to it. We get the backbone back to the car and then add the attachment pieces. The floor pan just further reinforces the longitudinal. The procedure is to cut all of the rust out, weld the new stuff in, and then caulk it and rust proof it. We leave the door on the car because we want to maintain a good door gap the whole time we're welding. That's our measure of keeping this car straight. If the roof is on and the door is on and the gap is all perfect, we know the car will stay straight. Firewall looks good here until we get over here and we see again some scabbing. You think, well, now why did they put a double patch there? Well, what has happened here is that the clutch tube has broken loose, which is a typical problem. You'll see that described in some of our pamphlets about the clutch tube repair. And the tube has actually pulled into the car, and if you look over here, you think, what the hell are these weird bolts right here? Well, what they did is they put a clamp in and clamped the tube to the floor and then double patched it here to hold it in place. Again, a terribly improper repair. This has a tendency of kinking the tube and from then on making the clutch very, very hard to push. What we're going to do is we're going to cut this firewall out completely, and again we have a beautiful replacement piece that we will weld in. We'll pull the clutch tube back to its position, get rid of this, weld the original clutch tube bracket inside the tunnel, and the piece will be restored better than new. If we go here, we can see the center tunnel, a hole here, because you begin to think, well, this must be a good floorboard. Doesn't look so bad, but you start to see a hole right here, and then how thin this area is to where I can even pull it down with my finger, and then over here you see another hole that I can just pull down, and then you start to see a little bit of crispiness here, and all of a sudden this floor pan doesn't look too good anymore. So with that, we've decided that why take a chance? We're just going to replace the floor pan on both sides, rear to front. The cross member reinforces the car left to right and provides a good rake area for seat adjustment. You can't ever see the cross member rust until you get the floor pan away, and then obviously we can see where this is rusted up. The battery acid from the battery seems to have a habit of dripping down the frame as this frame goes down, and it works its way inside the longitudinal and creeps forward even as far as this, catching the acid dampness inside the cross member and rusting it away. We have hand fabricated some right side only cross members to avoid having to put the whole piece in, but I can see right now that it's caught it on the left side also, so we will then use the factory cross member left to right and put the whole piece in. And that will be after we install the floor pan. This is our inner firewall piece that is easily installed right in this position, and this will provide a nice ledge upon which to seat the floor pan. This side of the floor pan is solid, so we'll end up probably putting our floor pan quarter. Notice it comes complete with the seat mounts. And the nice mating surface on the perimeter, we'll have to completely bead weld this solidly to the other one. But this piece, once we prepare the perimeter, will easily mate up. And of course, by me holding this up here, it sort of looks like the car is well on its way to repair, showing all this nice fresh metal. But these floor pans we spot weld by going around the perimeter with a drill and putting little holes, just like the factory did, all the way around, and filling in the spot welds. And of course, here we will seam weld it solidly. Other piece I wanted to show you is the outer firewall. This is a custom-made piece. It required a lot of fabrication to stamp and flange all of these holes. You can see where the clutch tube hole is and the two fuel lines coming out. You can see how close they are, along with the other lines like the shifter and the speedometer cable. And then the heater tubes over here and the emergency brake cables. This is actually the driver's side. This piece, and not necessarily having to use the whole thing, this piece is cheap enough to where we can afford, if we've got a good solid piece, to cut it. But it was easier just to make the whole piece when we're doing the tooling, so you'll have plenty for whatever you want to do. This piece will just fit right up in here, replacing all of this mess and giving another flange upon which to mount the floor pan. The floor pan with the inner and outer firewall sits there, and it can be spot welded in two places for extra strength. My conclusion is that this car, in our opinion, has minor rust on it, is easily savable, and we'll focus on the further repairs as we get into them. You'll see this car come back from virtually a pedal cart to a great driving 76 914. For a more extreme repair, what we use is our rotisserie. This is a custom-built piece that bolts directly into where the 914 bumper mounts, front and rear, and is connected in the middle for strength, and has large wheels so we can roll this car around as need be. And we can swing it from side to side or up and down, wherever we want. This is what we call an extreme restoration. We are dealing with a car that has been heavily damaged in the past, is a special edition, which, as you probably know, are worth more than any other 914 four-cylinder. So we didn't want to do a spot repair. We didn't want to do a little bit of rust repair. We want to do a comprehensive restoration, and that means stripping the car down to bare metal, doing all the rust repair, doing all the body work, and then bringing it back in the most delightful concours manner. We don't ever strip a car with chemicals. Chemicals get into the crevices. You can never get them out. It's messy. It takes all of the original factory caulking out. It takes every bit of inside sealing. It takes out the heater tubes, and it makes a mess. We use what we call media blasting. Media blasting could be any kind of different media, like baking soda or little bits of plastic, anything but sand. Media blasting will gently take the paint off while preserving the original metal finish, so that you can see when the thing is media blasted any body work the car has ever had in its past. Now, it will not take rust out, so when the car is media blasted, you can absolutely see any rust that the car has ever had, and you'll know where to go to specifically address those areas. But yet, with media blasting, it does not etch the metal, it does not distort the metal, and you can see any body work that's ever happened on this car. We can see now the original metal finish on this car, and although nothing has been affected here, if you'll look, you can see a little bit of rust starting here that if it was sandblasted, you'd never be able to see because all of the metal would have been etched. We have a car that we're going to restore to concours perfection. It's going to take a lot of work, But let's face the facts, these days, for all the work we're going to put into this car, you could probably buy a $20,000 nice limited edition and come out better than restoring this one. But at least we're saving a piece of Porsche history.
Our Porsche parts inventory is one of the most comprehensive in the nation, with the world's best 914 and 944 parts collections. We have racks upon racks of both new and used parts in our vast warehouse, including thousands of new old stock or no longer available items. Each part is categorized according to the Porsche parts numbering system for easy access. We designate our parts by the GRUB system. G parts are from the factory, R is an aftermarket piece, U is a used item, and B stands for either rebuilt or manufactured by AutoAtlanta. Most of our vast used parts inventory has come from 30 years of dismantling hopelessly wrecked Porsches, as well as those donated to us by other Porsche enthusiasts. We try to recycle every part from every car and rarely throw anything away. Our graveyard has hundreds of Porsches resting peacefully, and we always accept donations. Even if the factory no longer makes it, we do. Our reproduction parts are all of the highest quality, with many guaranteed for life. Our special reproduction parts include everything from numerous rust repair panels to the tiny nylon door latch repair cam, and most recently, our beautiful 914 taillight lenses. The heart of our business is mail-order parts sales along with quality free automotive advice and encouragement. We are all automotive enthusiasts. Our friendly telephone sales staff have personal Porsche experience, striving equally as hard as the company's president to maintain these beautiful pieces of engineering. We have most items in stock already, and we can get anything you need quickly. It's important to have one-stop shopping for all your parts needs.
Thank you, we'll get that right to you.
As the years roll on, our mission continues to keep your Porsche in perfect condition while doing our part to preserve the mark. Although it's been more than 30 years since the last 914 rolled off the assembly line, they are still fresh and new to us and remind us of our roots. Our museum collection, located right in front of the sales desk, is an ever-present reminder of where we have been and our dedication to the cars and the future direction of AutoAtlanta. When you come to visit, you will be delighted by what you see. Our goal and commitment to you is to ensure for future generations that all models still exist in good numbers, so that all can experience the joy of owning a simple and unique piece of Porsche history.
And again, to what I first said, to go back and look at the 914, as simple as it is, and does everything right with a very simple design, that makes it easy to restore. Plus, Porsche's always been good about providing parts. You can buy a 914, you can buy anything you want new for it, you can easily put the thing back together and have a car that outhandles today's modern cars, and does it in a simple, easy manner. And the joy is, after you finish restoring it, it drives a damn great, unlike any other car out there, any other sports car out there for sure.